The Saga of the Mighty Telephone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast of The Ordinary Maverick. This is Ajay, your host, an ordinary maverick, sharing real life thoughts and experiences and maverick tips. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do so, and you will not miss another episode. Thank you for registering. You are in queue, and our approximate wait time is 5 to 7 years. Yes, fellow mavericks, you heard it right. 5 to 7 years, not days, not hours, not minutes, but years. That's what the wait time was when one signed up to get a landline or a fixed line telephone in the early to mid 80s in India where I grew up. Of course, there were no mobile phones then. When I share this with the kids of today, they say, "Oh, but then you should have gotten a cell phone. Why wait for a landline?" In fact, they don't even know what a landline phone is. I have to actually explain that to them. Gosh, how much the world has changed, and we, Gen Xers, have seen this changing. I have spoken about Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z earlier in another podcast. Big shifts that each group has lived through and is living through. Well, one of the biggest ones is the way life has changed around the telephone. Where we once waited years to get a landline, now we have a phone and we are connected in a matter of minutes. I remember distinctly the excitement at my home when the phone line got installed and was operational. We called everyone we knew and who had a landline and were super happy, like we kind of accomplished some great thing. And everyone was congratulating us too with a bit of, envy, I'm sure. And you know what? The only reason that we didn't quite wait years to get our landline telephone was because we got to know the manager of the telephone company. It was through contact that we sort of jumped the queue and got our very precious phone. Our neighbors were very happy as well, as now their close ones could reach them. All we had to do if their call came through is to knock on their door and call them to come over to take their call. Guess that's not changed. Now they come in for other things as well. In those days, being able to connect with loved ones and family was not possible without the telephone, which was fixed and not mobile like today. And we were so challenged when one traveled or was on the move. My wife recalls her hostel days at university and how they would wait hours for the operator to facilitate their call home. One had to place a call request with the operator and then just wait. Yes, wait patiently till the operator put your call through. It took hours sometimes, and then they had to call the operator who most of the time had gone off to sleep. And for the students at the hostel, it was the most frustrating thing. No solution though, one just had to wait for the operator to put your call through. So you couldn't even antagonize the person or else your call would, never go through. What a crazy, frustrating scenario. And I recall another incident when my parents were traveling out of station. They would call, a good way to check on me, as with a fixed line, they would know I was at home and not gallivanting. Today the world is completely different. No waiting, no relying. And there is no way of telling where you are unless, of course, you switch on that feature. One is always connected and connected instantly. We kind of progressed from these operator-dependent calls to STD or ISD calling. Use these words with youngsters today and they will look you with questioning eyes. The word STD has an altogether different meaning for them. That's interesting. We should speak more about these acronyms and the words that have different meanings across generations sometime in the future in one of my podcasts. But to come back to what these meant in the context of communication, well, STD means subscriber trunk dialing or subscriber toll dialing, and ISD is international subscriber dialing. It is a telephone numbering plan featuring and telecommunications technology for the dialing of trunk calls by telephone subscribers without the assistance from switchboard operators. Every country, city, and area had a unique code, and using that helped one to connect to a telephone in that place. One could do that from your own landline phone at home if you did have that feature installed, or from a PCO. You might ask, what's a PCO? It's the public call office. At one time in the 90s, these booths with STD, ISD, PCO written boldly were everywhere in India. It was a telecom revolution in so many ways. It all stemmed from the vision of connecting India, and that's exactly what happened. Millions of Indians who just had to rely on their trunk calls placed through the operator or a telegram through a post office to communicate now could just walk into a PCO booth and speak instantly anywhere across India and the world. It was simply fantastic, and almost 1.5 million people were employed as a result across India. I still recall using these booths, which, by the way, died a natural death over the years given the rapid expansion of cell phone and the mobile industry. And one of our favorite memories of this PCO booth is when our elder daughter was coming into this world. I was traveling at the time for work, my last trip before I was to stay put for the delivery. But our daughter came into this world early. It's always unpredictable, right? And my wife went to one of those PCO booths after her checkup that day and called me at the hotel in another city where I was attending a meeting at the time. I recall the person coming into the meeting and telling me there was a call for me at the hotel reception. It's funny how some memories are etched crystal clear in our minds forever. And I remember going to the reception and speaking to my wife and then arranging the first flight back home, which was later in the evening. Throughout that time, hoping and praying I reach in time. And I did. The doc said, "Your daughter waited for you to be there to make her entry into this world." I totally believe that. Yes, everything moved fast the minute I reached the hospital later in the night, and our beautiful daughter arrived healthy and well into this world. Thanks to that PCO booth and the helpful hotel reception folks, I got the message in time. That's how important even hotel receptions were at the time. They still are, of course, but at the time, super critical for communication. Remember traveling overseas and then waiting in the hotel room for a call from home, or letting the reception know that I was in the lobby or a restaurant in case a call came from home? Gosh, we were so reliant on all of this and other people to even connect to each other. Today, the world is in the phone. News, classes, calendars, contacts, all bank work, medical work, basically everything is on the phone, even entertainment. And one is connected on the phone everywhere at all times. And even when we are at 35,000 feet, one has Wi-Fi on planes now. Of course, not quite sure that's a good thing as we struggle to let go, and the digital detox I have spoken about in the earlier podcast is a much needed reality. However, regardless, we have come a long way. We don't need an operator or a PC booth. No, not at all. We just do it all ourselves, seemingly effortlessly. Of course, there are millions of folks working behind the scenes to make this happen. In fact, I just recently walked into a store here and got my SIM card, which was active in just a matter of minutes. Super simple. Wasn't always like this, even with cell phones. My wife worked in Papua New Guinea several years back, and at that time, there were two mobile networks in the country, and they didn't speak to each other. Meaning, one could only call a particular network if you had the connections from the same one. Coming from India, this was a revelation. She saw that most people had two phones, and when asked why, this was the reason. People had a connection from each network and used that phone while speaking and connecting with another person on that same network. Imagine if that was the case today, we would all be walking around with any wild guesses? How many phones? It seems there are over 800 cell phone operators worldwide. Of course, if you went with just the top 10 with the maximum coverage, you would still need 10 different phones. Pretty impossible, right? Thank God that technology has moved forward and we don't have to suffer any of this going forward. Further, it sounds so bizarre. It's how we set up our expectations. In fact, today we get impatient if the signal bars on our cell phone receptions are less. Our expectations are something else, and we demand to have the full coverage everywhere and at all times. Fellow Mavericks, let me share something here. That's the link with expectations in life that lead to disappointment and then the frustration and loss of hope, etc. Often we do not pay attention to our journey of setting expectations of our surroundings and our reality. We fall prey to the world around us and get taken in and swept away with the expectations that are being set for us. Think about it. We've come to expect instant coverage, and if we drive out a bit into the mountains or go for a holiday someplace and don't get it, well, then we are not happy and start feeling uneasy and start thinking, why did we come here? And the next time we will see about the coverage first, etc., etc. Missing out totally the very point of the holiday and driving out to enjoy nature and the moment, to go with the flow and just be. Here is where the Maverick formula comes in. Set expectations right and do not get into the cycle of disappointment, frustration, anger, and just missing the beauty of the moment and the present. Recall the Maverick formula? It has three core elements. 1. Go with your gut. 2. Be true. And 3. Fall forward. And for the first one, go with your gut, one needs to be mindful, be present, and not get crowded or influenced by anyone or the surroundings. Only and only then will your gut speak to you. Will your instincts get it right? And believe me, you will not go wrong. So, set your expectations right. Do what's most meaningful for you by listening and going with your gut. Be true and then falling forward always. Do keep writing your comments and sharing your feedback via our Instagram at The Ordinary Maverick or through our hashtag The Ordinary Maverick. I love hearing from you. This is Ajay signing off and wishing you have an amazing day, a super amazing year. Keep well, stay safe. Credits. This podcast series was put together as a team effort from the Bhardwaj family. Concept, design, title, researchers and reviewers Ajay, Sanjana, Avantika and Niharika Bhardwaj. Script, Sanjana. Cover design, Niharika. All rights reserved.